Hello and welcome to Sunday Sweet Chats. My name is Charles K. Carter, and I'm a queer poet who currently lives in Oregon. I am the author of Read My Lips from David Robert Books, as well as several chapbooks, including Artificial Sweetness from Finishing Line Press. But that's enough about me. Let's talk about our sweet guest today and discuss some sweet, sweet poetry. I'm so excited to have you, Elizabeth. Can you introduce yourself to our audience?
I'm so excited to be here too. I must say, before I start talking about me, I love your work. I love your covers. I've ordered two of your books. I think it's fantastic. And this sweet space is awesome. It's fantastic. So, my name is Elizabeth M. Castillo. I'm a British Mauritian poet, writer, and workshop facilitator. And I'm the author of Castillo, which is a multilingual and bilingual book that was out 2 years ago now. And my latest poetry pamphlet, Not Quite an Ocean, which I'm going to be talking a bit more about later, is out at the moment with Nine Pens Press. I love to write in different languages. I write a bunch of things under other pen names as well. And I write about all sorts of things. It's a bit difficult to summarize what you write about, but there's a lot of womanhood, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of mental health and self-acceptance, there's a bit of race, there's a bit of feminine rage, because I mean, there's plenty to be rageful about. And yeah, that's about it, really.
All right, great to have you. Before we move on to poetry, which is what we're here for,
Mm.
just the standard question on Sunday Sweet Chats. What is a sweet treat that satisfies your sugary urges when you have them?
Okay, so you would think that that would have been the easiest question to prepare for. I'm gluten and dairy free. So that's, I mean, it was a cruel question, to be honest, Charles, very cruel. Because what would satisfy me and what wouldn't make me violently ill are two different things. If I were not gluten free, a good old classic Victoria sponge cake like I used to get at my Catholic school when I lived in the UK, it probably was frozen or probably came out of a can, but it was amazing. But since I am gluten intolerant, I love a good gluten free crumpet, again, very English, with butter. I'm not actually that much of a sweet tooth. I much prefer something savory and stodgy that's a nice comfort, fills the belly, fills the soul kind of thing.
All right, awesome. All right, let's move on to sweet poetry. You have a poem to read for us. Go
Yes,
for it.
I do. It's one of my poems from my chapbook, Not Quite an Ocean. I'm just waiting for my actual proofs to arrive. And this poem, now the chapbook has a lot of poetry about womanhood, about suffering, about chronic pain. But since this is a sweet chat, I thought I'd choose something a little bit sweeter. And this is a poem that is a lot about self-acceptance, and it's called In Summer, I Am Beautiful. In summer, I am beautiful, not like winter, when even the sun hides his face from me, as if the thought of spending the long, languid, dwindling hours of the day in my company were too much to bear. Winter, where shadows creep and creep, where trees are naked, when hope decides to hibernate. In winter, a grayness covers the earth. There's no telling the color of a dandelion or the green breadth of a blade of grass. Like a faithful mouse, I have learned to hoard up small crumbs of happiness, the familiar creak in the floorboard, the last drop of tea left in the cup for safekeeping, the steam-coaxed softness of skin. Not so in summer. In summer, I wear beauty like a shroud, and my solitude becomes a wildflower crown. In summer, I gather beauty all about me, wet at my temples, between my breasts, at the backs of my knees. Like calls to like, salt calls to salt. There, submerged in the forgiving ocean, I find in water and in summer, I'm beautiful. Thank you very much. That
And
was
that
my.
was beautiful. Thank you. I love the all the natural imagery and it's great. Um, and is very sweet and gentle and loving and I know as a poet sometimes that's hard to write
It
those
is.
types of
Why,
poems,
why
but
is that? I mean, like the grief and the angst just comes gushing out, but the gentle, let's be a little bit quiet is more difficult. But I find myself writing more of that, strangely. And every so often, like this very poem, I come back to it and I'm like, did I write this? This is very unlike me. But I do love that, and especially now I live in Paris, and it's that time of year where spring is, creeping into summer, and at the end of the day there's that beautiful light, and I'm from the tropics, so I love the heat. And it's just kind of that season, not just of the year, but for me that season of life, and that season of my life as a poet, where I'm writing more things that express how okay I am with myself and how okay I am with the world and how I've survived this far and I will probably be around a bit longer, you know? So I'm finding myself kind of dabbling in that a little bit more.
I love that, and I can't wait to see more of that from you and others. And I think just the more authentic we are with ourselves, and even modeling that self-love that gives others permission as well. So
I hope so. I have two young daughters, so they play a big role in my determination to explore this avenue of myself and self-acceptance, because I mean, the world isn't going to teach them that, is it? So I want them to learn it as young as possible.
yeah, unfortunately, I think that's becoming a theme with season 2 episodes I'm filming so far, is this idea of how do we stay sweet and gentle and soft in a world that is constantly trying to harden us.
Mm. I think it's a form of rebellion, to be honest. It's a terribly what's the word, paradoxical thing. But I think that the I mean, I've only ever been a woman, so as a woman with my experiences of life, to not kowtow and not bend yourself into the shape that society and life and just the systems that we live in demand of you is in itself an act of rebellion. Of course, there are times when you need to go out in the streets and, you know, raise your march and protest, but I believe that our lives themselves can be an act of rebellion against what this world wants us to be. And I'm fully leading into that. And there's a lot of that in this poetry collection. But again, I didn't realize it until I read the manuscript, and I was like, gosh, who knew there was all of this inside of me? So it's been a very interesting experience that way.
I find my own writing, especially putting together a manuscript, you're like, I've been writing all these poems, I think they kind of have something together, and
Yeah.
you begin to see other themes emerge that weren't so surface level. It's like, oh, the more I dig into this, the more I'm seeing. And am I revealing something about myself or society or culture? Like, I don't know. It's kind of the beauty of
Absolutely, it is.
poetry.
It's such an interesting thing, especially because poetry is such a not a necessarily abstract, but a versatile. It can, you know, poem is whatever the reader needs, kind of thing. But you do, and another thing, an example of that in this collection is, I would never call myself like an eco poet or whatever. Of course, I care about the planet and the climate crisis, but I have not done the work behind it to claim that. Um, you know, for the people who really studied it and made an effort to write according to, you know, response to the climate crisis, etc. But then as I was reading this collection, I was like, my goodness, there's a lot about the earth and there's a lot about all of this in it, you know. I think in my case it's because it's very possibly easy, it's an easy parallel between, you know, the plight of women and oppression of women and the violation of women and the violation of the planet. But there's more to it, because as you say, you find things about yourself that were obviously, you know, wandering around in there somewhere in the head and the heart and the soul, and then you only realize that they're on paper. So it is an interesting thing. I'm not sure novelists necessarily have that experience as much as us poets do, you know, possibly because we're all completely bonkers, it must be said as well. That might have a great part to do with it as well. So we have no idea what we're doing when we're writing. It's only when we read it again that we realize the extent of our insanity.
But I love that. I love that about the process, how, and even as a reader of poetry, how every time I look at a poem, depending on the day or my mood, or I get something else out of it. I love
Absolutely.
that reader involvement, engagement.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's
All right.
no other art form like it.
Tell us a little more about the chapbook that's coming out.
Yes, yes. So my chapbook, I'm just going to show you the cover again because I mean, isn't not it so gorgeous? Look at that. Look
It
at
is
that.
beautiful. I love it.
So I'm fairly obsessed with the ocean, possibly because I'm so far from it. And it's a chapbook that is about womanhood. It's about pain in the body, changes in the body, whether that be from childbirth or illness or your body not accepting something, or, you know, various things like that. It is. I specify that it's a lot about womanhood because there's a lot about sort of, you know, menstruation and your value and your self image after having children and things like that. There is a lot about there's a lot about violence against women in it, and a lot about the environment and self-acceptance. Those are fairly different things, all of them together, but somehow they're all together in the same chapbook. And I guess, as I said, the ocean and the not just the ocean, the earth is sort of that parallel, the sort of the metaphor that keeps coming back to how we've abused the ocean how the ocean is full of trash and yet it's expected to keep supplying our planets, um, and that sort of thing. And this chapbook actually came about in a very unusual way. It was actually the editor of Ninepence Press, who I admire greatly. I love all the work he puts out and all of the posts that he publishes, who actually approached me and said, well, the next book that you have, I'd like to publish it. And I had something, but it wasn't short enough to be a chapbook, and I felt like it wasn't quite finished. And so I thought, well, what am I going to do? You don't turn down an offer like that, and I love Ninepence. So, and I just sort of, as you said, started gathering these poems together. And as I put them together, I thought, wow, there actually is cohesion there, and there is the same, not necessarily theme, but the same, I would say, atmosphere and the same tone and the same tone of voice. The speaker has the same tone of voice in this chapbook, in this pamphlet, as we call it in England. And what had begun as literally me thinking this is going to be a very scrappy project is something I'm actually super excited about putting out into the world. And that has been in itself just a really, really rewarding process to see my own work almost like it wasn't mine, putting it together and saying, oh, wow, this has actually become a thing. So I'm excited about it. I think that it can appeal to lots of different readers, but I would hope that anyone who reads it would find something that would make them hopefully push them a little step further to some self-acceptance, and to, as we were saying before, just being okay with yourself. And yes, the world's on fire, but we're all doing our best, sort of thing. That's really what I would want readers to go away with from this chapbook. So yeah, I'm really excited about it.
That sounds wonderful. I know you sent me a PDF copy to read. I haven't read it yet, but I can't wait to. And we'll make sure to have the links to order that and find information in the video description. But this project sounds wonderful and something we need. And your final thoughts are a great way to segue into my final question for you is, how do you personally stay sweet in a world that is so salty?
Oh, absolutely. I thought long and hard about this because I didn't want to be flippant. And honestly, I think I stay sweet as much as I can by giving people the benefit of the doubt, which is not necessarily an easy or popular thing to do. But there comes a point in, I think, everyone's lives, and people who have been through things, I've been through things in my life, I'm sure you have too, where we carry a lot and there's no need to be carrying anymore. So whether it's the person who cut me off when I was driving, or didn't let me merge yesterday, actual person exists, or it's, the person who's a bit rude, or someone on social media, whatever it might be, give them the benefit of the doubt. Who knows what they're going through? Maybe their dog just died, maybe they're going through a depression, maybe they've never been taught, maybe they've had a really hard life. Whether or not that's true is not my problem. And their behavior and their lack of courtesy and their lack of whatever it is on them. But by me giving them the benefit of the doubt, I don't carry it anymore. Forgive easily, put it aside, whether it's the little niggles of every day or even sometimes bigger things, if you can manage it. Obviously, it's not that simple. But I think that is something that helps me stay sweet on a daily basis, is just to give people the benefit of the doubt, because it's on them, it's not on me.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really important lesson. I imagine a really hard lesson at times to
Oh,
try
yeah.
and integrate.
It is.
And I'm sure, like,
once you're able to, you feel really good about being able to do it. You're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And I did it. Yes, point for me.
yeah, and I'm sure everything like that is a practice. Like, it's not going to be perfect every day. But I mean, you have to have that gentleness and kindness to yourself as well.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Elizabeth, for spreading your positivity and your light and your sweetness. Can't wait to read your pamphlet and to have everyone else read it as well. Thank you for being here. It's been a sweet treat to have you.
Oh, it's been super sweet to have you, and to have you to be here. And thank you for what you're doing and the space that you've made for poets. It's not just great for our books, but it's really nice to have people creating these spaces for us.
Thank you. Thank you. I know these conversations are really fulfilling for me to have these. Thanks again. Thanks for tuning in to Sunday Sweet Chats. Catch another episode next Sunday. Bye, everyone.